The paintball industry has seen its fair share of ambitious products that were promised to revolutionize the game. And some of them have, like low-pressure guns and electronic hoppers. But then there's others that have failed harder than my Turkish hair transplant. And that's what we're talking about, not hair transplants, but failed paintball products. Hydrotech was a whole new way to make paintballs. It was made of a biodegradable plastic cornstarch shell and had a non-Newtonian fluid that was 98% water. Whereas traditional paintball shells are made from gelatin or, AKA dissolved animals, and the fill is polyethylene glycol or PEG. There were quite a few advantages to that Hydrotech. The shell is essentially waterproof, so it'd work much better in rain, and it wouldn't suck up humidity from the environment and swell like a traditional paintball would. Hydrotech also said that the ball would last up to 2 years sitting on the shelf, which is good, normal paintballs are only lasting a few months, but that also probably means that if it's sitting out in the environment, it's not going to biodegrade as fast. And think the Hydrotech, if it's lasting 2 years sitting on the shelf and there's not water going into it, how does it biodegrade? I don't know, I just feel like there'd be just paintballs all over the paintball fields. Or people that'd be raking up all the old paint. You don't want to do that. When people actually started using that Hydrotech, some problems were noticed right away. One mainly is that the ball weighed up to 25% less. So less mass just means it's going to be more prone to curving and be less accurate, but it's also not going to go as far. But there's one good thing to reduced weight. You can actually decrease your pressures quite a bit. Some people were even claiming that these Hydrotech balls, because of the reduced weight, we're seeing increases of 50 feet per second compared to just normal paintballs, which is pretty crazy. That means you can run lower pressures and then possibly get better air efficiency. But it's shooting all over, so there's that. There were also people saying that the ball didn't break correctly. In a paintball, we typically want to just kind of shatter. But I think on this Hydrotech, it was a little bit thicker. The shell was just a little thicker, so it wasn't able to shatter like we want a normal paintball to, and it was kind of just breaking at the seam, which isn't ideal. When they're making that Hydrotech, they actually make it in these like sheets, right? You're getting a sheet, and then you put fill on the inside, you put another sheet on top, and then you just kind of fuse them together. Whereas normal paintballs, they're kind of all made at the same time. That fill on the Hydrotech is also very unique. It's made from 98% water, but there's also some other things in there that make it a non-Newtonian fluid. If you guys are familiar with what that is, you've seen maybe that test where you have some water and cornstarch and you mix them up and you can put your finger in that cornstarch really easy, but if you hit it really hard, it firms up. The opposite is true here. So you can see when they load those paintballs in there, they're actually filling the paintball with fill. It's all thick and kind of pasty, but when it actually makes impact, when you're putting energy into that fill, it kind of turns into a liquid and spreads out just like a normal paintball would. I don't know which, style is better, liquid on the inside or not liquidy on the inside, but it's just different. It's just kind of cool. What's really kind of neat though is because that fill is solid in there, you could put like half blue fill and like half red fill on the ball or something like that. And then when it breaks on target, you actually get like a split shell fill, which is just kind of neat. Hydrotech is probably only one of these products on here that's actually kind of a neat thing. It just didn't work out. I think the accuracy was a problem. I think it might have been really expensive to manufacture, and I can't remember fully, but there was certainly some drama inside the company. That couldn't have helped. 2008 for paintball was a very hard year. Sales were down, participation was down, and to an effort to try to make it a little bit cheaper, GI Sports started pushing 50 cal paintballs really hard. When paintball first started out, there were 3 main size paintballs. There was 68, 62, and 50 caliber. And there were a few other sizes, but those are the most popular 3. But 68 caliber has really been the main size since the early 90s. All of our equipment is designed around it. So when GI started pushing 50 cal on us, it was met with a resounding, what the hell are you doing? It just doesn't make any sense. It doesn't shoot as far, it's less accurate, it doesn't break as easy, and when it does break, it leaves a much smaller mark. But that didn't stop GI from pushing it hard. They released the 50 caliber Nano, a tournament gun. There were also versions of the JT Impulse that were 50 cal. And I was looking around, but I couldn't find any of this information, but I certainly remember the Millennium series in Europe running a 50 caliber tournament. If you know anything about that, leave a comment below. I have used 50 caliber though once. I had an Ego 11 that at the time Planet Eclipse was selling a conversion kit for it to make it shoot 50 cal. And it's kind of fun, and it's really just kind of crazy how if you have a traditionally sized hopper, you can actually put 450 50 cal paintballs in there. So you can think you have a pod and a hopper and you can be carrying around 800 paintballs. You know, it's way better than, you know, having 4 pods in a hopper, so it's a little bit lighter. But man, playing against people with 68 caliber, it's pretty much impossible. I mean, this stuff does not shoot far enough at all. There's a lot of paintball fields that are using that 50 cal though in guns like the JT Splatmasters. Splatmasters are cool. There's no tank on there. You just pump it, shoot it, and then the velocity's pretty low though. It's under 200 feet per second, mainly because you're just pulling back this plunger and it's kind of just releasing the plunger and then pushing the paintball out at about like 170, 180. If you want to buy a 50 cal gun, you can though, and Tippmann are selling one. You can get the EMEC in 50 caliber. It's mainly just for paintball fields for that low impact stuff. The brainchild of WDP, or what ended up being Angel Paintball Sports, the Angel Eyes were supposed to be the second coming of paintball masks. The Angel Eyes were a very sleek, modern take on a paintball mask, unlike the popular then and now JT ProFlex. The Angel Eyes had a really futuristic design that just looked like it came straight out of a sci-fi movie. They even ditched the usual padding and replaced it with a very minimalistic system that had most people scratching their heads. On all paintball masks, this foam goes all the way around the goggle frame. But with the Angel Eyes, there was only the foam on the top, and then they had these little pads on your cheek. And I wasn't ever able to try one of these things on, but from what I remember, people said they were comfortable enough, but it just felt really, really weird. Mainly because there was just no, traditional foam around your nose. It just had those, pads on your cheek. It was also just really odd to me. I mean, the foam around the goggle frame obviously is there for comfort, but it also reduces how much hot air can just kind of go into the lens and cause it to fog. And with the Angel Eyes, there's just, no foam right there. So it just seemed like hot air could really get over that lens really easy. Just look at the thing. I think it's hideous. I do not like the way it looks. I mean, sure, it's unique, but I think it's just way too futuristic. It looks like something from like 2130, 100 years in the future. But right now it does not fit in. It looks like someone just dropped a prop from Starship Troopers in the field. The ventilation also looks really bad. I mean, it just looks so closed up in the front. I mean, it's possible underneath those panels it's just completely open and breathes okay, but there's nothing on the sides. It's just kind of a solid mask. And I think if we've learned anything about breathability and just, being able to breathe wearing the thing, more holes are certainly better. And there's 2 main reasons the Angel Eyes ended up in the paintball graveyard. One, Angel just went out of business only a year after the unveiling, but in the long run, it was really the issues with the lens that killed it off. They just couldn't ever get it to pass the ASTM tests that all the other masks go through. But the mask didn't die. It was bought a few years later by Tiberius Arms, now First Strike, and they really purchased the mask with plans to release it under the name the C2 Ion. But from what I remember, they also had problems with the lens, and they just weren't ever to figure out how to get the lens to work correctly, and then First Strike just killed it off. But that's good. I hated the thing. It looked ridiculous. It was huge. Good riddance. The Tippmann C3 pump was released in 2005, and it's the first and probably last propane-powered paintball gun. Yes, propane, because nothing says a good time like the smell of propane in the morning. The C3 tried to market itself as a rental option or people that had like private woodsball groups. Like say you have a church group or a summer camp, maybe you'd look at the C3 over the Tippmann 98. Mainly because getting the propane is just a little bit easier than filling CO2 or compressed air. You can just go to whatever sports stores still exist and buy it. You go to REI, Bass Warehouse. Bass Warehouse a thing? Bass Pro Shop? Fisherman's Warehouse? The C3 is just crazy, right? You have a propane tank on the back. That propane goes into a chamber on the inside of the gun, and you have kind of like a makeshift barbecue lighter that lights that propane off. It's just kind of crazy. I mean, you gotta think that there's little teeny explosions going off inside of this thing. And it was just kind of nuts thinking about when you're shooting that there's propane literally igniting inside. And if you shot the thing really quick, you know, say 10 shots just back to back, you could feel the side of the gun getting warm. It's definitely a little bit scary, and for sure, you know, I get nervous with compressed air tanks sometimes. So the last thing I want to be thinking about when I'm running to bunker someone is if I'm going to explode into a ball of fire. Really though, what made the C3 so interesting was how air efficient it was. And I was able to dig up a very old article on Warpig, and they found that you got 30,000 shots from a 16-ounce propane tank. So I mean, you know, a CO2 tank, you're getting like maybe 1,000? So this is crazy. I mean, you're getting 30 times the amount of shots. But the real issue with the C3 was that reliability problem. Having to like tune the fuel mixture and stuff was weird. And then really the propane just freaked everybody out. Let me know in a comment below, what's your favorite like vaporware, never gonna happen paintball graveyard product?